Here are the products that will be used in the install. Left and right rear brake calipers, ceramic brake pads, 2 rear brake rotors, stainless steel rear brake hoses, 2 speed bleeders, brake wear sensors, brake bleeder bottle, and brake fluid.
All right, so getting straight into it, first step, what you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to jack up your car. I use this air jack, and pretty much all the tools I use, I'm going to leave links for on Amazon. But I use this air jack. My car has a jacking point right here. Every car is going to have different spots where you're supposed to jack up the car. Use the appropriate one because it's really going to suck if you send this through the floor of your car.
Oh my God.
Once you have your car up, and this is not just a car guy tip, this is a tip for life and a tip from somebody who's an ICU nurse. Never, ever, ever, for any reason, go underneath a car that is supported only by a jack. That is beyond dangerous. Do not do that. I've had way too many patients in the ER who've had cars fall on them, and I don't want to see you there. So in terms of how I support the car, I always jack the car up and then I put a jack stand underneath, lower the car down so that the weight of the car is on the jack stand. But I also keep the jack here just in case for some reason the jack stand fails. I mean, I haven't had that happen, but if it were, the weight would then come back down on this guy here. And then we also have the tire underneath so that we know it's not going to go all the way down to the floor. So we have like 2 levels of fail safe here. All right, our next step is we're going to have to get this caliper and rotor off of here. To get this caliper off, we're first going to remove this clip, and then there's some bolts in the back. Also, if your caliper is functioning normally, there should be some amount of pressure pushing the pads together on this rotor. So we're going to have to push this piston back into the caliper. All right, so now to get this piston to go back into the caliper, there's actually a tool for that. I'll link it in the description. I don't have one. I keep saying I'm going to buy one, and then every time I do brakes, I do what I'm about to show you guys. So maybe you don't need to buy it, but it's actually kind of simple to get the piston pushed back into the caliper. All right, so to get this piston back into the caliper, the first thing that I do is actually inside of the car and under the hood. So the first thing that I always do is I compress the brake pedal. Giant spider on this thing. Oh my God. Now there's probably some special tool that you're supposed to use for that. I always just use a block of wood. So, but if there is some special tool, again, I'll link it for you guys, but you can easily do this with a block of wood. Now, the next thing that you'll need to do is figure out where your brake fluid reservoir is. For mine, it lives underneath the cowl where the cabin filter and all this stuff is. There's so much junk under here, so I'm gonna have to vacuum. But anyway, mine lives under here. And so what you're gonna wanna do is open the cap on this, and you're gonna need to keep a close eye on how much brake fluid that we have left, because what we really don't want to do is run this dry and then run out while we're like trying to bleed the brakes, and then we have to bleed all of the brakes. Okay, so the next thing we're going to work on doing is getting these brake lines off. If you are just removing and replacing the caliper, you can actually just remove the brake line from behind here where it connects at. But in our situation, I'm also upgrading the brake lines, which I think if you have the ability to upgrade to stainless steel brake lines, as in somebody does make stainless steel brake lines for your application, I would say do it. The braking feels just a lot better. And then on top of that, the stainless steel brake lines are a lot more durable because instead of, just a piece of rubber, you have a piece of braided stainless steel on top of the rubber. So it's a little bit stronger. All right, so to remove the brake line from the body, there's just this little bracket that holds it, and then we're going to grab a wrench and then put one up here and one down here, and we're going to see if we can get it to turn out just fine. All right, so now that we have this caliper disconnected from the rest of the brake system, it should make things a little bit easier if we're trying to compress this caliper. So we're going to throw this C-clamp on here. We're going to try to get it all the way around the caliper. And you can see We get the piston pushed back. All right, so now to get this caliper off, we're going to use this 19mm wheel socket. It doesn't have to be a wheel socket, it's just what I have. Of course, I have the camera underneath the air hoses. So hold, please. I think another thing of note is you guys probably have seen me using a whole bunch of air tools. You don't necessarily need air tools to do this job. I've done it plenty of times with just hand tools, but electric tools and air tools will definitely make this job a lot easier. All right, so for our next step, we actually have to remove this rotor. It's held onto the face of this hub with a H6 bolt. So that's a hex and it's a number 6. Make sure it's the right size. Make sure it goes all the way down because you really don't want to round this out because you're going to have a really terrible day if you do. Just like that. All right, so we can actually see the face of the hub. This part is what connects to your axle. This is the nut that holds the axle on. And then these brake shoes, these don't do anything for stopping the car. This is your emergency brake. So I always check to see how much pad life we have. We have quite a bit, so we're not going to look at changing these. I hate changing these, by the way, but I hate anything with drum brakes in general. These actually aren't bad in terms of drum brakes, but it's PTSD. But anyway, next step is to, I guess, just get the new rotor on there. All right, so this is the new rotor. I got it from ECS Tuning, and also while I was on ECS Tuning, I picked up a new hold-down set screw. You can probably reuse the old one, but I've had so much bad luck with these, I tend to replace them, and ECS makes a stainless steel one that doesn't get all corroded, so that's like I'm not going to say a game changer, but that's a big deal to me because you have no idea how many of these I've broken. But the reason why I go to ECS Tuning, I'm not sponsored or anything, but the reason why I like them and FCP Euro is because they offer a unlimited mileage lifetime warranty on all the parts that they sell, including wear items. So if you buy this brake rotor and just over normal course of usage, it wears out and gets warped or whatever, they will replace this. They will replace it, no questions asked, and send you a new one. So it's kind of one of those things where you can just buy it once and then not have to worry about it. All right, so we're about ready for our calipers. A few things that we need to talk about. So with these calipers, the first thing that I did was I actually replaced the bleeder screws with these speed bleeders from Russell. The idea is that these have a check valve in them or a check ball in them so that fluid can come out, but air can't come back in. So basically you just use them like a normal bleeder screw. You open it up a quarter turn, and as you're pumping the brakes, air is coming out. Now, typically when you are doing this, you have to have a friend, and so then you squeeze the brakes, the fluid comes out, and then they close it before air can escape back in. But with that built-in check valve, I should be able to do this all with one person. Now, when you're looking at these brakes, how do you decide which one's the left and the right? Because if you look at them, they're actually identical, especially if you were to do that. And so what you're probably realizing is that these are the same exact casting, like left to right. They're both identical to each other. The way that I always remember it is that air travels up. And so how you know which one is where is when you put them on the car, this bleeder screw always needs to be on the top. As you can see, this boss here is only drilled out on one side. So this would be a driver's side because it would go on the car. Oh no, it would go on the car like that. And then we would have our bleeder screw at the top. So always remember when you're installing these, bleeder screws go up. So this one would be flipped that way, and that's your passenger side. Now, I know some of you guys are probably screaming at the screen that it's pretty easy to tell which one's which because they're different colors. The reason why they're different colors is because this whole setup has been back ordered since, I don't know, November. So I have been waiting to do this for a really long time, and I finally have both of them. So the caliper actually slides back and forth on these pins here. And if they aren't lubricated, they're going to seize up. And then once this seizes up, then basically it's like you're going to have a locked on brake rotor. And then it's going to overheat the tire, you're going to blow the tire, and then you're going to be sitting outside of your car questioning your entire life. So just always make sure you lubricate these. Now, something important with these is I know some people think that this is just petroleum jelly that's on here. It's not. Don't put petroleum jelly on your brake rotors. For one, petroleum jelly is flammable, and this stuff is not. This stuff is actually a silicone lubricant. And then the other thing is, even if that petroleum jelly doesn't catch on fire, it can actually melt and then kind of like work its way out of here. And then that like defeats the whole purpose of like lubricating it if you lose all your lubricant because it all melted out. All right, and then when it comes to putting the pads in, another place where you will want to put a little bit of lubricant is right here because the pads actually slide right there too. So anywhere where you have motion and movement, you want to continue to have motion and movement. So do a little drop there and there. And there. And there. All right, and so now it's kind of time to put it all back together, right? So in terms of how it goes together, and so obviously this part slides on here where we looped the pins before, right? So that goes like that. So that's perfectly easy. And then when it comes to the pads, you'll notice you have two different pads. You have one with a clip and then one that has nothing on the other side. This is your front pad or the outside of the car, and then this one goes towards the inside. It has this clip because on the inside of this piston, there's actually a ring, and this clip fits in there so that the pad doesn't fall out. All right, so been destroyed by mosquitoes, but I got it in there, right? And then this one, like I said, this one goes on the front. All right, so now that we got the caliper back on the car, we now need to bleed the brake system because this entire caliper is filled with air and we got to get all of this air out. The reason why that's important is because air is compressible and hydraulic fluid, which is what your brake fluid is, it is not. That's what transfers the braking force from your brake pedal to the actual road. Just you get in, you push the pedal, or I guess you open the bleeder valve first and then you get in, push the pedal, and then the fluid comes out and the check valve makes sure that air can't suck back in. And then this bottle that you're seeing here is a brake bleeder bottle. I usually make these out of a water bottle. I usually just like melt a hole in the top and then pass a hose through. But I decided to be a little bougie for this video so we can see if this thing actually works for you guys. So typically when I use these, what I always do is I put a little bit of brake fluid in the bottom, enough to cover up the hose, because when you're pumping the brakes, you want to be able to see the air bubbling out. And then on top of that, which you shouldn't have to worry about this with the speed bleeders. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but at least with regular bleeders, what you don't want is to get some regurgitation where you let off the brake pedal and it sucks back some air. Well, if that tube is submerged in brake fluid, it's actually just going to suck back some brake fluid. And so by doing that, basically what you're doing is just making a fluid seal. So then if your partner or your speed bleeders or whatever doesn't close the valve fast enough so that air doesn't, escape back into the bleeder, it's not going to suck back air. It's just going to suck back more brake fluid. All right, so it's now even later, and I'm still on the driver's side. Oh my God. So what appears to be the case is that they sent me the wrong hardware. This caliper is right, but I think this mounting bracket is wrong. As you can see, there's a huge gap in between the face of the pad and the edge of the rotor, and likewise inside. And like if we look on this side, that's not really the case. So I think they just sent the wrong mounting bracket. But see, like the problem is that it's actually like the last one that they have. So I've waited for months and months and months and months for this part to show up, and it's the wrong part. And when they shipped it, like I had to call them, and then they looked for it, and then they shipped it, and they said it was the last one they had. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to swap the bracket off of this seized piston, and then hopefully that will work on that caliper. Oh my God, why can't anything ever be like straightforward? Man, I gotta get in the house. There are way too many mosquitoes out here. All right, I'm back. It's a few days later. There's pollen everywhere, so I'm probably gonna die in the process of filming this, but whatever. So it's been a few days. I've driven around on these brakes. Everything feels fine. The pedal feels actually better than it did before, as much as I can remember all the way back from October. So overall, this was a success. I just kind of wanted to do a little bit of a debrief and talk about some of the problems I encountered along the way. As you guys saw, one of the first problems I had was getting the brake line out. The way the brake lines work on this car is they're not like pivot, or they don't have like a swivel on them. So as you are tightening it into the brake caliper, it is loosening it from the body of the car and vice versa. So the problem I was having was trying to like loosen it from the car was pushing up against the caliper. I mean, okay, that's not like the biggest issue in the world, except for the hose was in the way of filming. So I ended up cutting mine. I don't think you have to cut yours if you're looking to replace them. It was just easier for me filming and getting my arms in there and whatnot. The other thing of note, and I haven't edited the video yet, so hopefully I remember to put this in here, but I ran into a problem with the caliper bracket. The caliper bracket was wrong. I'm not sure what model E60 this is from. I've had lots of issues trying to get rear brakes on this car because all of this happened like in October or November of last year, and parts for this car have been back ordered. The 535i has a brake caliper that's not shared with other BMW models, which is very rare. And so the part that they sent, the caliper bracket was wrong, but the caliper itself was correct. So what I ended up doing was swapping that caliper onto my old caliper bracket, and there we go. The caliper bracket was so far out of spec, I couldn't actually get the tire back on. So that was actually kind of like a big problem. But like I said, I just had to use the old one. Now I have to reach out to Rock Auto, which is where I bought them from, to see what they're going to do, because at the time I ordered it, they said it was the last one. They had plenty of passenger sides, just like everybody else. But for some reason, the driver's side is hard to come by, and BMW discontinued them. So I have to see what Rock Auto wants me to do in terms of the core exchange, because the part I'm sending back isn't the part they sent me, but whatever. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it in terms of problems. Other things that, oh, I guess there is one more problem. And I don't know if I want to call it a problem, but it's something that happened. So that brake bleeder bottle that I was using, typically I make one. I just take a water bottle and melt a hole in the cap and I put a hose through. But I actually bought one this time. Amazon sent the wrong one twice. Okay, so just be aware if you order that, just make sure you get the one that you ordered. So the one that I ordered is with the magnet and it has the hose on the inside. The first time they just bottle. The second time they sent a bottle with the magnet, but they did not send the hose on the inside. So third time's the charm, I guess, and they sent the right one. And then I guess the other new thing that I tried out was the speed bleeders. Those things are pretty phenomenal. I was kind of skeptical at first, but I've never been able to bleed brakes by myself that effectively. So everything works just like a normal bleeder. You just crack it open a quarter turn, you push on the brake pedal. Everything feels the same for me within the car. And then the cool thing is I was able to look back on the camera and I can see the fluid coming out and I can see like little air bubbles and everything. And I just kept going until it felt fine, closed the bleeder. And then after that, I pushed on the pedal again to get the piston to make the pads contact the rotor, and we were done. So yeah, very, very impressed with those, like to the point where I probably will put them on all of my cars going forward whenever I do some type of brake upgrade. Those things are amazing. The only thing that I will say of note is that if you look on Amazon for these, like I did for my specific car, Amazon says there's nothing compatible. And that's because Amazon's not really like a car place. So that's not surprising. How I found the ones for my car, because when you look, Amazon says, no, there's no options for this car. What I did was I looked up what the thread pitch of my bleeder screw was, and I just ordered that bleeder screw. The actual easiest way to do that is to actually just look up on FCP Euro. So you can go on FCP Euro and then search your specific BMW, and then it'll show you all the part numbers, or you can go to Real OEM and it'll also give you all the part numbers and the thread pitches and everything. So however you want to find them, whether if you look on FCP Euro or realoem.com or however you find it, just find it, find the right thread pitch, and then throw them into your calipers. You will thank me later. It just makes life so much easier. But overall, I think that's pretty much all that I have to say for this video. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know this video format's a little bit different than what I typically do. I'm trying to like separate the content types a little bit, because what I've noticed is that people like the DIY content, but they don't like the vlog content mixed in with it. So I'm kind of trying to separate it into 2 separate videos. So if you actually do like the vlog content with me talking about what's going on with all the rest of these cars and whatnot, that video is coming in about a week or so. It's actually live now on Discord. So if you're a channel member or a Patreon member, it's live for you guys. And if not, I guess you guys will wait for a week and see it later. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So just sound off in the comments, like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff that I'm supposed to tell you how to do that I never remember to tell you guys to do. And then I guess I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out, homies.